I want to segue to talk about negotiating. You've had, to say the least, some time in the trenches there, and you've been party to a couple of big ones. So I've heard you say that negotiations are less a game of chess and more a game of Marco Polo. What's that mean?
Yeah, I do think this is an area that like, a lot of sales and BD and corp dev teams get it wrong. Like they think of negotiating as this game of chess where I'm trying to take as many of your pieces as I can and protect mine as much as I can and misdirect from time to time to try to get leverage and ultimately, try to think 5 move ahead and win. And that's the way they think of negotiating. Personally, like the most impactful transformative negotiations I've been a part of have been much more about listening and trying to understand one another's priorities in what can oftentimes feel like this fog of assumptions. You don't really know what the other person is perfectly solving for. You haven't fully expressed what you're trying to solve for. So everyone's just trying to listen and learn to better understand it. Like, what does that actually mean in practice is compared to a lot of negotiations that I've seen or a lot of approaches I've seen to it, it means asking a lot more questions than you think you need to. I think that's really important. Like it's about repeating back what you think that you heard the person say. Because so many times someone's like, oh, I understand. And they actually didn't understand what the person was really trying to communicate. It's about being really curious when you're not sure or something isn't adding up and actually asking follow-ups. And when you are speaking, it's about being willing to be really direct, clear, and honest about your own needs. Because look, chess can be played in silence, but Marco Polo is a game played out loud. And if you're just handing these red lines back and forth in silence and hoping to get to a great outcome, I think you're doing it wrong. Like you got to keep calling out to one another and listening and hearing the responses and trying to find ways to address course to get to the same place at the end of the day. And those are the most transformative negotiations and discussions I've ever been a part of.
Repeating back what you heard, that is like a golden nugget. And I think for two reasons. The first is like there's nothing more powerful in the human language than someone hearing their own name. And then if you're also reflecting back, like playing back what they said, they're like, oh, you heard me. But I also think, and I'd love to get your opinion on this, like you have to qualify what they truly meant by it, because they may be saying something, but like from a business perspective, it may actually be adding up to something else.
Totally. This is the getting curious piece that's so important, which is we all run what we heard through a filter in our own mind.
Yeah.
We organize it. And it's like, I've got it. And either we think we've got it or we don't think we've got it. But most of the time, we don't know if we actually heard it correctly. And it's incredible. I encourage active listening. If you actually just take the time, just be willing to be vulnerable and be like, here's what I thought I heard. Does that add up? Does that make sense? Am I missing something? And you take the time to actually ask that back. You will be shocked how many times you will be met with a clarification, a revision, a reversal of what you actually thought you might have heard, because the person is getting the opportunity to feel heard and actually share back what they want. It's also like you're being vulnerable. You're saying, I don't have all the answers. I don't know everything that you just said. I'm asking if I got this right. Are you willing to meet me? I'm calling Marco. Are you willing to yell Polo back? Like, are we willing to meet our way back towards the middle? And I just find it just builds a lot more trust and authenticity. I think where these things usually fall apart is distrust. Parties don't feel like they feel like it's a game of chess. They feel like someone's trying to take from them and beat them and win, versus realize that you actually have some similar goals and there's an opportunity to find those goals together.
Well, chess is also a very binary game. Like I get a piece, you lose a piece.
Yeah, exactly. And when you realize like there are oftentimes things you care deeply about that the other person doesn't care about at all.
That was my next question. Can you say more about that? Like identifying gives that like aren't actually a give?
Yeah, a big part of it first is you'll never figure this out if you don't ask the question. So most of the time, if it's important to us, we feel it probably must be important to someone else.
Good point.
And so we see a lot of times in negotiations where like, I can't tell you how important that is to me because I know it's important to you, and then we're going to fight over this dimension. Whereas like even when we're talking through the Visa acquisition, there are a number of times we realized there are things that were really important to us that end up not being that material or important to Visa. And so that's a great win. And vice versa. There are things that are very important to them that end up not being that material to us. And so those are great opportunities to realize that we can keep making ground forward because we all have slightly different preferences. And if we're willing to open up and talk about what is important to us, we typically get a lot closer to the bullseye.
Isn't that funny? Like we have this scarcity complex around negotiations where we're like, if I tell you what I really want, you're going to hold that over my head, or it's going to be further away and unattainable for me. But really, if you do it right, it can actually unlock the door for them to be like, oh, that's what you wanted? Like, yeah, we can totally hook you up with that.
Yeah. Well, you have to remember, like at the end of these, you're either doing business together in a partnership, if it's a BD deal, they're becoming a customer, you're merging the businesses. This is not the end of the conversation. And so when you treat negotiations like they're this one-time event, I'm going to do this once and then we're never going to talk to each other again, you just fundamentally approach it the wrong way. Like the reason you all are in this conversation is you want to have a long-term relationship in one way or the other. And when you use all the terms that people typically use, like hold your cards close to the vest, right? Like you're not actually trying to build anything durable together. And you'll both feel that, and you'll, as a result, both end up missing the mark on where you want to land.
Run the Numbers is a mostly LLC production. Yelling an intro by Fat Joe. Artwork by some AI thingamajig. Podcast and video editing is done by Cleancast at cleancast.io. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of me, a guy who feeds his dog too much ice cream and has a history of net operating losses, lol. If you like this podcast, please hit subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And also check out mostlymetrics.com. That's my newsletter where I explore business models and financial metrics. Thanks for riding with me. Share this with your friends. Peace.